Okay, Joe's about to do it, so let's see what happens here. We're looking for a quiet place to make this thing happen.
So I'll just ask you, I'll announce who you are and, who you're running against. And then I'll ask you about your background, because I think it's really a compelling story that you have. You can talk about that, and then the next thing we'll do is jump into the lawsuit.
Okay.
And then we can take it from there, your overall plan for the local community, et cetera.
We got background music.
So I'm here with Joe Collins. He's running for Congress in the 43rd Congressional District in California. So I know that the Political Spirits listeners from California are going to be interested, but when you find out who Joe is running against, I think every Political Spirits listener in the country is going to be interested. Joe is running against Maxine Waters, and from everything I hear, he has an excellent shot at defeating her. So Joe, thank you very much for sitting down for an interview here on Political Spirits.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor. Thank you.
So one of the things that I find most compelling about your candidacy is your background. Could you tell us a little bit about where you come from and where you've been professionally?
Yeah, so I'm from South Central Los Angeles originally. I grew up in 104th and Normandy. Gang violence and domestic violence was something that we grew up with. It was in the community. It was a norm for us. After our house was shot up in a drive-by, we moved to Texas. My mother had enough. I started getting involved in gangs, and she didn't like it. I graduated high school in 2003. I joined the Navy in 2004. I served 13 and a half years in the U.S. Navy. I worked on the E-6 Mercury. I worked on the F-18 Super Hornet, and I worked on the MH-60 Seahawk. I did a boots on the ground tour in Iraq in 2008 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was a sexual assault and rape victim advocate and a certified licensed financial planner. Yep, I got out the military in 2017 to legitimately get involved in politics. That's the reason why I got out the military.
All right. And you were a non-commissioned officer, not
Yes.
a straight line officer. And I think what interests me so much about that is it really fits perfectly with and sends a message with the direction that the Republican Party is trying to move, trying to reach out to not just the wealthiest individuals in the country, to reach out to everyone, to the working class in particular, to try to address the disparities within the country and the difficulties encountered by the working class. Do you think that your background fits well with that, or do you think there's a conflict there, or how do you feel about that?
I would say this: if the Republican Party wanted to have an avenue to reach out to people from inner cities, black and brown communities, people who were not of the wealthiest class, then I will be an avenue. But if that's the message that they want to preach, then they need to say it instead of not saying it. It's absolutely important that we have people from all walks of life involved in the Republican Party. Balance is key to anything. But along with reaching out, you have to support them. Support these people from inner cities, and where I grew up, we didn't have a Republican presence. I became a Republican on my own cognizance because for me, the history of the Republican Party, the history of black people getting involved in politics was through the Republican Party. And that's what resonated with me. But the stereotypes, the ideologies of the Republican Party, they can happen. Some things I like and some things I don't like. At the end of the day, if the Republican Party is all about freedom, then I should have the freedom to think however I want to.
That's great. That's great. When did you become a Republican?
In 2004.
2000. All right.
That's
So,
when I was eligible.
okay, right at the first. That's fantastic. So you mentioned outreach of the Republican Party in the Black community. Didn't you participate recently in a very large sort of joint outreach effort? What was that, and how did that go?
Well, I'm always in the community, participating in all type of outreach. I mean, I run the majority of the outreach programs for the Republican Party in inner cities because the fact of the matter is, it's not too many people who are establishment Republicans who are confident or comfortable going into a Black community. You're scared. Even when we put our office in South Central Los Angeles, they say, well, we're not coming there because it's dangerous. Well, your opinion of danger is different from my opinion of danger. I've actually been to Iraq. Hostility is not dangerous. Hostility is a lack of understanding, a lack of communication or miscommunication. And that's not dangerous. It's uncomfortable. Yeah. Right? And so the outreach in Black communities, we've done it with our food pantries. We do it 3 or 4 times a week throughout the city. Our back to school drives, our backpack drives, our voter registration drives, even from employing people on our campaign. We have over 73 people that work for us, and they consist of Black people, brown people, white people, Asians. We have Democratic Republicans, Independents, Constitutionalists, Green Party, Freedom and Peace, American Independents. We have everybody on our team.
And I noticed that the 43rd district is the majority Hispanic district now.
It is.
Are there any positions that you've taken or approaches to groups that you've taken that resonate particularly well within the Hispanic community? Is it more, are the issues pretty much the same across the board?
What I like to do is I like to engage each individual ethnicity that live in my community. I want to find out what they want. I want to find out what they're expecting from the people who they would like to represent them. And what we do is, in a collaborative effort, we formulate a plan to improve those particular communities. Like the Latino community, DACA was a huge issue. The reason why DACA was broken, they were supposed to create a pathway to citizenship or green card holders through DACA, but it didn't happen. Now that the idea of repealing DACA is on the table, you have a lot of people who are in limbo. They've been promised something. And so what I want to do is fulfill that promise that the U.S. government gave to these people. And that's through making that program solve and creating that pathway that they're looking for. And just like the Black community, the issues with gang violence and police brutality, that's an issue with legislation and not bringing opportunities back. So when I talk to the Black community, I find out what they want to create a plan on a collaborative effort. Just like with the white and Asian community, find out what their issues are, small businesses, and so we create a plan. The education, we create a plan.
You know, it's interesting, the sort of the fundamental theme of the Political Spirits podcast is that the left and the right need to have a few drinks and talk. No need to compromise, we just need to talk. So I think we really are in the same, we have the same position on that. We need to talk to each other. And if you go in saying, well, you have to retreat from your position, you're not going to be able to reach a resolution. If you go in saying, I want to hear what the other side thinks, you're at least opening up that discussion. I think that's what you're saying, is if you open up that discussion, you will find a way to reach a resolution. We have to talk.
That's what I do.
All right.
And a lot of people who consider themselves Republican don't like it. Well, you got to preach the President Trump message. Like, you got to preach a Republican message. And my thing is, what if they don't like it? Right. What if they have their own issues? So like you said, we have to meet in the middle, find some common ground. One of the most fascinating things about the race we've been running in is the abundance of ignorance, and that's from both sides. Yeah. Right? The left doesn't want to hear the right doesn't want to hear the left, because everybody has been programmed to believe that there is a psychological warfare going on, and the psychological warfare comes from the lack of understanding, the lack of paying attention, and just a lack of concerted effort into seeing what's really going on, understanding each other, right? It's not a us versus them, a Democrat versus Republican, because everybody is struggling. It's a, what can we do to meet in the middle to provide opportunities and increase the value and the quality of life for the people who live in our communities?
So that level of conflict that's happening between the left and the right out there, there's one thing I could point to that's very relevant to you that I think is an example of that. I looked at your background and I was uniformly impressed, and I am from a military family. Your opponent, Maxine Waters, took a different approach, didn't she? And I think you've ended up filing a lawsuit because of it. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, she ran $1 million worth of advertising, lying and claiming that I was dishonorably discharged. And the reason why she did that was because I did file a lawsuit against the military. When I got out of the military, I was homeless, and I was living on the streets, and I was trying to get my VA benefits. I was going to Maxine Waters' office as a representative. It shouldn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, but I was met with no answer. I filled out job applications, internships, I offered their help, I brought her flowers, but I didn't get anything back from her. And so I sued the military, got my benefits, the case was dismissed because my benefits came through.
Right.
And she used the defense from the U.S. Navy, which said, well, he was dishonorably discharged, which was false, right? But look at my DD-214, it doesn't say that. To push her narrative that I was dishonorably discharged, she dissuade voters from liking me. It backfired tremendously, and we ended up filing a lawsuit.
All right. And how is that? Where is that? It's in discovery right now.
Yep, we filed 2 weeks ago, and we go to court next week. And I mean, just the level of ignorance that comes with running against my opponent is beyond me. I'm completely baffled. We ran into her 2 days ago, and the same thing that we sued her for, we even sent her a cease and desist letter. She was handing out the same exact thing. It was just on discharge. It's like, lady, you gotta stop. You know, because people are getting turned off by it. But that tells me one thing. One, I'm actually winning this race. And two, if Maxine Waters actually had done something productive for our community, she wouldn't be doing it. She wouldn't be trying to attack Jim Collins, who is not even in politics. If I was someone who is Maxine Waters, who's been in Congress for 29 years, State Assembly for 17 years, I would definitely run off my accomplishments with a positive message of let's continue to fight what we've been fighting for. But that's not what she's doing.
So what, if you look at Maxine Waters' background, is there anything in it that stands out as an actual achievement?
Yes, absolutely.
So what are her positive achievements?
So the one positive achievement that I can think of, and this is by pure speculation, Maxine Waters was one of the first pioneers to create an avenue for black and brown people to get in politics.
Okay.
Right? And I appreciate that.
All right.
And but the matter of how she expresses her message is not ideal and it's not helpful to our country or to our community. I can't think of any positive thing that Maxine Waters has said about her career from the time I've been conscious enough to understand what's going on.
Well, the thing that I certainly remember, and I think most Republicans remember, is her public statement that basically members of the Trump administration shouldn't be able to publicly go to a gas station without being, encountered, shouted down, run away, so that they basically can't participate in their lives. And I found that deeply disturbing, and it is, once again, sort of the opposite of the political spirits message. I think what you're saying is it's the opposite of your message as well.
Absolutely. We don't need to harass anybody. That's one of the biggest issues that we have in South LA right now. They listen to Maxine Waters and they take everything that she says as if it's facts, and then they actually try to pursue this message because they don't hear anything else, right? The 92 riots, she incited the 92 riots, which destroyed the majority of all of South LA. She promised to rebuild it, hasn't rebuilt it. The riots in Watts, the same exact thing. It's been back-to-back instances where Maxine has enticed violence. She's enticed racism. And I can understand why. She's old, 82 years old. She lived in a post-Jim Crow era. So this is all she knows, which is why it's important that we win this election and remove her from office. Because we're not in the Jim Crow era anymore. We are in, I would like to call it the Reconstruction era, where we are rebuilding our community on the values that matter most to the American people. And racism and slavery are not it. Reform and Reconstruction is it.
So you mentioned her age. What is your polling showing you about how you're doing with Gen Z?
With Gen Z, you know what? We hire them on our team.
All right.
Everybody. We have a really good group of people on our team. Our polls show us winning by a large margin. Of course, her polling shows us at 50-50. Other polls that I've seen or people told me about have us 3 or 5 points ahead.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to the election. I will definitely be watching the results from the 43rd District in California. Joe, it's been great talking to you. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, if you win, and I hope you do win, you'll give me a chance for an even more in-depth interview afterwards.
Absolutely. You have all our information. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you, Joe. It's been great.
Absolutely.
Very nice.
Doing good?
Absolutely.
You want any more shots or anything?
Mention your website.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, let me fire it back up. Oh, here, this way. So, Joe, one thing I didn't give you an opportunity to do is to mention your website so that people can find out more about your campaign and the issues you stand for.
Yes, please go to my website, joecollinsforcongress.com. That's joecollinsforcongress.com. Volunteer, donate. It's absolutely important that everybody get involved so we can remove Maxine White from office.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you. All right, guys, I got the next